Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
Caleb sent me a note and said, Steve, I think this is a new one. And I have not talked about something like this on this channel before with respect to it being in the news. So Joe Schroeder wrote this for Fox59.com. It's out of Indiana. Indiana murder trial dismissed due to staffing crisis and busy court schedule. So an Indiana murder suspect has been released from custody after his trial was dismissed due to an ongoing staffing crisis and a busy courthouse schedule. Now, the victim's family had to wait more than 16 years for an arrest to be made in a 20-year-old Kokomo man's cold case murder. It then took almost 2 years for the suspect to be put on trial, and then it turns out that they dismissed the charges. And they didn't dismiss them because they said, hey, we got the wrong guy. They dismissed him by saying, we're too busy at the moment in the prosecutor's office to take care of this. And so the charges were dismissed without prejudice, meaning they can be refiled again. But of course, that's always an issue. The reason for the dismissal is a reported staffing shortage inside the Howard County prosecutor's office and a team full of employees overburdened with pretrial motions. And again, not necessarily in this case, just overall. So Kokomo police responded to a call back in 2006 to a potential shooting, and there they found the victim dead. A witness told police an unknown man had entered the house with the intent of robbing it, leading to a fight between the victim and the suspect. And during the struggle, that's when this happened. And investigators gathered evidence, took witness statements, but were unable to identify any specific suspects. The man's mother said a couple years ago, it's been 16 and a half years. We've missed a lot of good times with him. So they wanted to see this case closed. And so over the years, the police followed up on numerous tips and leads. And in February of 23, they indicated they were close to solving the case and had narrowed it down to a very small group of people. And a county grand jury issued an indictment in 2023. And they named two people that they said were connected to this. And the indictment said it was a 48-year-old man from Indianapolis and a 36-year-old woman from Kokomo. Now, we don't have as much information as we'd like because this was done through a grand jury investigation. And grand jury investigations are, by their very nature, secret. So we don't know what happened there. And a lot of the information that was given to the grand jury would have come out at trial, except there is not going to be a trial, at least not anytime soon. The warrants were issued May 30th, 2023, and police arrested the man in Indianapolis, and the woman was arrested in Miami County. So the victim's family said at the time they never thought this day would come. They were very, very happy about that. So the family's uneasiness here in the case concerned the judicial process, and it turns out that both suspects have now had their cases dismissed, but without prejudice. So it's crazy, but one of the cases made its way through the system faster than the others, and it was the woman whose jury trial was scheduled to begin in January of 2025. However, hearings were repeatedly pushed back or rescheduled. Eventually, on April 7th, a decision came from the judge that the charges would all be dismissed without prejudice. Days later, the bond was dropped on the other case, and so they've both been released now. And so one of them was charged with murder. The other was charged with conspiracy to commit robbery. And so the dismissal document, which was obtained by the TV station, says the state has decided to dismiss the charges, and they explain that the Indiana Code allows the prosecution to reevaluate charges in light of new information. So you might go, oh, maybe they did get the wrong people. And they can dismiss a pending charge and refile amended charges so long as the decision is made before trial. The document then lists several reasons for their decision. And they say, the prosecutor's office faces a significant and ongoing staffing crisis. Well, that's not a problem with the evidence. It's not a problem with the case. It's an ongoing staffing crisis. They also say that they had just finished a major jury trial 10 days ago. So they're still recovering from that. They're currently preparing for another major jury trial, beginning at the end of this month. They're also overburdened with pretrial motions. And they've not yet reviewed discovery provided by the defense in this case. So they were not prepared to go on this case. So the TV station reached out to the prosecutor's office for a statement or more information regarding the dismissal. And they will update when that happens. But as of right now, they hadn't gotten much. And the mother of the victim was not happy. She was not happy. They had to bleep what she said. And she said that this whole situation has reopened old wounds. It's taken 17 years to get to this point, and now we're back to step one. It's done. It's like rehashing the whole thing all over again. She said that the reasoning provided by the state was not sufficient. Obviously, that's not her son's fault, that the prosecutor is overworked and underpaid. I threw that in because it always follows. So she said, I thought that was a silly way to let him out and everything. I just went to pieces. My stomach dropped to the floor. Now, most prosecutors' offices across Indiana are currently dealing with staffing issues, according to the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council. The hope among some officials was that the Indiana House Bill 1006 would fix the issue. The bill would reportedly have incentivized counties to pay deputy prosecutors a little bit more, and then the state might make up some of that money. So officials with the Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys Council told the TV station the provision has since been gutted due to the state looking for ways to cut funds as part of an ongoing budget crisis. So there's no question that their office is understaffed. They've got some statistics on that. A study by the Association of Indiana Prosecuting Attorneys based on data from 2019 reportedly shows that the HCPO requires a little over 23 full-time deputy prosecutors to operate effectively. And the office we're talking about only has 11. So they've got less than half of the number of prosecutors they need, people in the office. They need 23, and they've got 11. Now, that's a problem. But when you have the situation where people are accused of and charged with murder, and you say, well, we have to let them go because we're understaffed, that is a serious problem. Now, I've heard of staffing problems at courts and at prosecutors' offices. That's not news. What's news here is this staffing shortage is causing them to say, oh, we're going to dismiss the charges against these two people accused of a very heinous crime. And we might get to it, we might not get to it. But remember, person's entitled to a speedy trial. Speedy trial runs, I believe, in most places from when you're arrested. So if these people are let out, well, then theoretically, the speedy trial thing would start over again when they get rearrested. However, the real problem, of course, is if you knew that there was a murder charge hanging over your head, but you'd been let go because of a situation like this, would you stick around or might you disappear? That's one thing. I will tell you that this reminded me of a story. It's a little different of a thing, but you'll see the parallels. Years and years and years ago, I had a jury trial that was set to go to trial in 36th District Court, which is a district court in Detroit. It was a civil jury trial and a very, very serious case. And the case had dragged and dragged and dragged and dragged. And finally, we got a trial date. And the trial date was in mid-December. And I showed up, my client showed up. I remember dragging into the building a hand truck stacked with banker's boxes with evidence, witnesses ready to go. We all go into the courtroom, we're sitting there, we checked in. Other side checks in, same thing, witnesses, banker's boxes, all that stuff. Judge's clerk comes out and goes, guys, I've got some bad news. And we're like, what's that? And she goes, we're not going to have a trial today. I said, oh, okay. I mean, we're used to getting adjournments, but usually you get the adjournments the night before, a couple days before. And she goes, no, the difference here is that we don't have enough jurors in the jury pool to pull an actual full jury for this case. Now, remember, it's a civil case. We needed eight jurors. 8. And so I remember I asked, I said, so are there a lot of jury trials today or what's the problem? And she goes, no, we don't even have enough people for one jury. And I said, you guys send out notices, right? She goes, yeah. She goes, the week's approaching Christmas, no one shows up. No one shows up. And so it got rescheduled. And then the case did eventually settle, so we never actually had a trial on that case. But the weird part about that is that 36th District Court has a lot of courtrooms and a lot of judges. And for them to send out jury notices and they couldn't scare up 8 people. Now, it's true, they might not have said, hey, let's have a jury trial with only 8 people, because you've got jury selection and someone might not be suitable. So you might need to have, 12 or 15 people to choose from to get 8. But the point is that there weren't enough people. And so we're like, oh, okay, we'll come back. It reminds me of that, but this is a little different. And so if there is an area where the prosecutor's office is so overwhelmed with stuff to handle that they cannot handle a murder trial that a grand jury was convened on. And you might say, Steve, why is that important? Oh, that's another issue. You see, you can get an indictment in many places if you've got a rock-solid case against somebody without going to a grand jury. But a grand jury is used to investigate quite often crimes that are a little touchy or a little unclear, or some investigation needs to be done. So they actually drag in people to sit on a grand jury and investigate something and watch testimony and go through evidence and then issue an indictment. And so a grand jury got called on this case, and those people sat through those proceedings. They did their duty. And at the end, they said, yes, we're going to issue a bill against the man 48 of Indianapolis and the woman 36 of Kokomo. Okay? And they issued indictments. And those indictments were issued. So they've already inconvenienced a huge group of people, as well as the prosecutor and the judge who oversaw the grand jury. And now it gets handed to a prosecutor who goes, we don't have the staffing to do this. And so that is a breakdown in the system that should not happen. So I hope that they can figure out what they need to do to get this funding there, because I've heard of them dismissing really, really low-level stuff before because they don't have time to do it. And the best example I can give you of that is if you go to court on a day where they've got a bunch of traffic tickets written by one jurisdiction. So let's suppose the Birmingham, Michigan police write a ton of traffic tickets, and the day that they're all hearing all those tickets is one day at a courthouse, 48th District Court. And you go there and you're representing a client who got a ticket in that group of tickets. If your client got a ticket for doing 10 over, well, I assure you that in all the tickets the officers wrote, there'll be some for 10 over, 20 over, reckless, careless, possibly even drunk driving. So guess who the brakes go to? Quite often, the people at the lower end, because they haven't got time to try them all. So guess what? You want to be one of the ones that doesn't get tried, but that makes sense that they make that decision based on just everything before them. But if you said, hey, I want to dismiss my case because I know you can't get to it, they'll say, oh, yeah, we can, watch. And they put you at the other end, and you don't want that either. So that's how these things work. Caleb, thanks for sending that. From Fox59.com, Joe Schroeder wrote it. Indiana murder trial dismissed due to staffing crisis. And that's 2 defendants whose charges were dismissed and a busy court schedule. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. At least we were lost in the right direction this time.